Cary, here's the audio, checking it. Checking the audio now. Here it is.
From Los Angeles, Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison.
I've spent a decade taking a bite out of conspiracy theories, unraveling urban legends, and grappling with worldwide top secret issues.
I've even racked up some of their awards.
Wow, I mean, first of all, what a question.
Journalism is about telling the truth, all while ferreting out the bottom line.
I'm a Harrison Hellraiser.
Uh-oh, with me, Cary Harrison, as your guide.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison.
Live from Switzerland today, neutral Switzerland, which is appropriate as we discuss the future of all things that matter. We've been on KPFK and many of our affiliates endlessly showing and taking you to pieces of the Republican
From Los Angeles, Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison.
I've spent a decade taking a bite out of conspiracy theories, unraveling urban legends, and grappling with worldwide top secret issues.
I've even racked up some of their awards.
Wow, I mean, first of all, what a question.
Journalism is about telling the truth, all while ferreting out the bottom line.
I'm a Harrison Hellraiser.
Uh-oh, with me, Cary Harrison, as your guide.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison.
Cary Harrison with you, your new best friend, coming to you live from neutral Switzerland. That's right. I am up in the foothills of the Alps right now in a country where there has not been a war in well over 1,000 years on purpose, while all around it for many years, about 80 years ago, raged a horrible war where millions lost their lives. Today, we now face that threat ourselves in the United States. We're going to open up the phone shortly because I want to hear what you think about the recent GOP convention and the future of America as it's being spelled out in Project 2025. Today, we gather not just as observers of history, but as active participants in a living democracy. Yet as we sit here, still in the comfort of our liberties, a shadow looms over the very principles that bind us together. The creeping specter of authoritarianism and fascism. So it's imperative that we understand why this threat is so perilous to the fabric of our democratic society as we still know it. Authoritarianism at its core is the concentration of power in the hands of a single ruler or a small elite. You could call it a kleptocracy. You could call it a corporatocracy. You could call it what we are seeing more and more, a mass and get together, think tanks taking over our democracy. This concentration, it erodes the checks and balances that are essential for a healthy democracy. Look at our Supreme Court recently. You see, when power is unchecked, it paves the way for abuses, where dissent is not merely discouraged, but silenced. Imagine a society where the freedom to express an opinion or to criticize the government or to demand justice is met with fear and repression. Such a society stifles innovation, it stifles creativity, it stifles progress, it suffocates the very essence of what makes us human. The rise of fascism intensifies this danger. Fascism cloaks itself in the rhetoric of nationalism and purity, seeking to create an us versus them mentality. It thrives on division, preying on fears and prejudices to justify its draconian measures. History has shown us with devastating clarity the horrors that follow when a nation succumbs to such ideologies. The Holocaust, the purges, the genocides, these are not mere footnotes in history, but stark reminders of the human cost of unchecked authoritarianism. Saying that word makes me stumble because it is so close and I can feel it. I can feel the goosebumps on my own arms. Let's take a look at Project 2025 and see how each of these concepts is already enumerated and well planned out in 900 pages of truly un-American thinking. In a democracy, power derives from the consent of the governed. It's a system built on the principles of equality, of justice, and the rule of law. But authoritarianism seeks to subvert this, replacing the will of the people with the will of the ruler. It undermines democratic institutions. It discredits the media. It discredits the media. I'm going to say that again. It discredits the media, and it sows distrust among the populace, or sows, if you want a double meaning in a word, the way it's spelled. When a leader claims to be above the law, when they attack the judiciary, or when they dismiss legitimate electoral outcomes, they're not just eroding public trust, but actively dismantling the very foundation of democracy. And I think you know about whom I happen to be speaking. So we must be vigilant, for authoritarianism and fascism do not appear overnight. They creep in slowly under the guise of security, prosperity, patriotism. They exploit moments of crisis. They offer simple solutions to complex problems. They tell us that to be safe, we must give up our freedoms, that to be prosperous, we must follow without question. But democracy is not about simple solutions. It's about dialogue. It's about debate. It's about dissent. It's about holding our leaders accountable and ensuring that power remains a servant to the people, not the master. We must remember that the strength of democracy lies not in its ability to silence dissent, but in its capacity to embrace it. So today, you and I stand firm in our commitment to democratic values. We're going to recognize the warning signs and resist the allure of authoritarian promises. For the preservation of democracy requires constant vigilance on our parts, active participation in our democracy. It demands that we remain steadfast in our defense of liberty, in our defense of justice, and in our defense of the rule of law. And in doing so, we're going to honor not just the past sacrifices of those who fought for these principles, but also secure a future where freedom and democracy can thrive for generations to come. We are live streaming, by the way, live streaming on YouTube, on Facebook, on everything with a chip and a signal all over the world right now, because this is important that your calls be seen and heard by the people of Earth. We've been promoting this. I'm coming to you live from Switzerland. I have in the live studio audience right now a Ukrainian and a Russian. I have an Italian photographer who works for the highest governments and corporations and brands here taking pictures of this, because it's an important conversation and discussion we're having here today. And he's memorializing this because your calls matter, your voice matters, this democracy matters. So I'm going to open up the phones. I'm going to play first a clip, which is coming up in just a couple of minutes. It's just a little quickie from the Republican convention. Next week, we will be discussing the Democratic convention. So everybody is fair game. We're going to discuss your reaction, what you're hearing, and I want you to predict the future based on what you've been hearing people say. Our numbers are 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. Cary Harrison with you live streaming on Facebook. You can go to just Google Cary Harrison, C-A-R-Y, and YouTube at the same time. You can go to our KPFK Facebook page. You'll see it there too. You'll be able to see and hear everything all over at the same time. Quick review before I go to those clips. Let's remember who is running for president in the Republican Party. Donald John Trump. Thanks to the New York Times that put together a lovely little compendium of the past, I'm just going to read through very quickly a little list of what he did as president of the United States, e pluribus unum. A lot of people seem to have forgotten what it was like under President Trump. I was at Sundance Film Festival a couple of months after January, when he began his term as president. and almost 100% of us at Sundance. Now, we're there to celebrate movies. We're there to promote and pitch. And I'm on the red carpet interviewing all the different stars. Every one of us, including the stars, all got on Main Street and marched for women's rights. We knew that down the road, at some point, Roe versus Wade would be reduced or reversed, rather, reduced to nothing and reversed simultaneously, reduced to nothing in places like Florida, reversed on a national level. But we didn't know when. We could not augur the exact dates of the future. So let's review some of the dates. Let's go back to 2017, the largest audience ever to witness an inauguration, period. It's not true. That was said by Donald Trump. He tried to defund sanctuary cities in an effort to ramp up deportations. Sounds like Germany of 1944. The Wannsee Conference, remember that? Where they came up with the final solution, the Muslim ban, which actually affected me, and I'm not a Muslim. Now, how would an Episcopalian, the Church of England from 350 years ago, how would a Muslim ban affect me? That year, I went to Egypt to go visit the great Pyramid of Giza, to see all of the great temples. But because of the Muslim ban, I could not fly to Cairo. Yes, the ban was not them just coming here. It was me going there. So I had to fly through Moscow to get to Cairo. 2.5 days of flying. It's as if my grandmother had flown in a DC-3. That was the Muslim ban. That was just the beginning. Then we have Steve Bannon, a committed dismantler of the administrative state and the National Security Council. The Trump administration abandoned a decades-long commitment to a two-state solution in a news conference. In other words, the Palestinians and the Israelis will never be able to have their own territories. He fired the FBI director, James Comey, who was leading an investigation into ties between Russia and the Trump campaign. Doesn't matter who has dinner with whom, campaigns, that becomes a big problem. It's even a felony. But if you already have 34 to 37, who's counting? Trump revealed highly classified intelligence to Russian officials. He raged against immigrants, saying everyone from Haiti, everyone, they all had AIDS. He tried to fire the special counsel, Robert Mueller, over the Russia investigation, sent his son-in-law to negotiate Middle East peace, walked away with $140 million in profit. That's the son. Donald Trump, after consultation with generals and military experts, advised the U.S. government that they would not accept or allow virtually anything that came from outside and only from Trump's desk himself. He had very bad people in the world, and he was going to go after them. Cut taxes for corporations and the wealthy, sending the budget deficit skyrocketing. And here we are today with giant inflation because the printing presses had to start up. A lot of that happened during COVID. And what happened during COVID? Well, we had about 1 million people die because also we heard from the White House, the official place of knowledge, the president of the United States, the highest elected official, told us that it was a hoax, that the virus that was killing your relatives, where bodies were piling up in hospitals, that what you saw with your eyes was not true. And then he told you to put bleach up your rear end and myriad other things. And so people died. Lots of people died. Very many lots of people died, using his vernacular. Declared national emergencies to get money for border walls. Suggests shooting migrants with guns in the legs to slow them down. Continues to attack John McCain well after his death. Reverses North Korea sanctions by Twitter. Proposes ending federal health rights protections for transgender people, which have now fully been removed in Florida, thanks to Ron DeSantis, his clone, where Donald Trump, of course, has his residency in the state of Florida and enjoys full protection there. Donald Trump says he would accept opposition research from Russia. I have a Russian sitting in this live audience right now. It's not personal. This is just information and history. It goes on. The New York Times did a wonderful job on this. So everything from hydroxychloroquine during COVID to praising QAnon at a news conference. QAnon, of course, a made-up whole cloth institution of conspiracy from my hometown, Lake Forest, Illinois. One of those rich white guys invented QAnon, and it is now a global phenomenon that people wish to follow. Completely invented at a cocktail party. The same way L. Ron Hubbard invented the religion Scientology with a $100 bet on a cocktail napkin. They bet him, could you invent a religion for $100? He said yes. He invented Scientology based on science fiction. He was a science fiction author. Of course, all of it is based on his imagination, and it is now a multi-billion-dollar industry, illegal in places like Germany because it's considered a scam. So is QAnon, considered a scam all over the world. But in the United States, many of us don't know that. The Proud Boys stand back and stand by. Then we get up to the last 3 days of his presidency. Do you remember the last 3 days of his presidency? Vetoes after vetoing annual military spending bill, making our vets suffer even further. He tried to overturn Georgia's election results. Then there was January 6th, became the first president in the history of the United States to be impeached twice. And of course, here we are in a almost civil war, certainly the shadows of one, and things to come. So I'm going to play you a little bit of audio right now. Here's a little video clip. If you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook or anywhere, you will have seen this. This comes a lot of different clips from MSNBC, from CNN, from here, from there. But this is just a little montage just to set the tone. Let's take a look.
But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States? Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother.
I've got the hardest job tonight. I have to follow Hulk Hogan. But I stand here tonight as a private citizen who loves this country. I've been asked to say a few words and then to pray, and we're going to do that. Last Saturday in Butler, Pennsylvania, President Trump had a near-death experience. No question. But God spared his life.
And next we will end the ridiculous and actually incredible waste of taxpayer dollars that is fueling the inflation crisis. They spent trillions of dollars on things having to do with the Green New Scam. It's a scam. And that's caused tremendous inflationary pressures in addition to the cost of energy. And all of the trillions of dollars that are sitting there not yet spent, we will redirect that money for important projects like roads, bridges, dams, and we will not allow it to be spent on meaningless green new scam ideas. And I will end the electric vehicle mandate on day one. Thereby saving the U.S. auto industry from complete obliteration, which is happening right now, and saving U.S. customers thousands and thousands of dollars per car. In that spirit, the Democrat Party should immediately stop weaponizing the justice system and labeling their political opponent as an enemy of democracy. Especially since that is not true. In fact, I am the one saving democracy for the people of our country. And very big news, as you probably just read. On Monday, a major ruling was handed down from a highly respected federal judge in Florida, Eileen Cannon, finding that the prosecutor and the fake documents case against me were totally unconstitutional, and the entire case was thrown out of court. Nothing will stop me in this mission because our vision is righteous and our cause is pure. No matter what obstacle comes our way, we will not break, we will not bend, we will not back down.
Cary Harris with you. This is Rethinking Heroes, rethinkingheroes.com, where you can also see our live video streaming, rethinkingheroes.com. You can also get in touch with us, and you can call in because I want to hear your thoughts and have you augur the future based on what you have seen all week and heard all week from the Republican convention, whether it is Franklin Graham of Billy Graham fame pointing out that God saved Donald Trump. Didn't seem to save hundreds of thousands of other people on the planet in peril right now, starving to death, etc. But God stepped aside and handpicked and plucked Donald Trump. It amazes me, by the way, the Secret Service. Now, I'm not looking for conspiratorium here, but I will say there are some curious questions that still need to be answered. Secret Service are among the best trained on earth. You don't just end up in the Secret Service. It is a Navy SEAL on steroids. You are the very best of the very best. If a president gets shot at, you throw him to the floor and then you drag him out. You do not let him stand up because there could be a second shooter, a third shooter. So how does this happen? The official story, Donald Trump, like a gigantic sperm whale, strong, rippling with musculature, thrust himself up, tearing himself from the strong grip of the Secret Service, standing up like a god, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Really? And here he is now wearing a maxi pad on the side of his head, and half the people in there are doing the same. Do you know what Donald Trump's favorite book was when he got divorced from Ivana, his first wife? The central core of the divorce was that he was reading a book called Meine Neue Ordnung, German for My New Order, Adolf Hitler's second book. Now, I've mentioned this before here on Rethinking Heroes, but Hitler wrote two books. We all think it was just Mein Kampf. His second book, My New Order, was all of his speeches personally annotated by him. You can find this book. It's a rare copy. It's still, I think, a few copies on Amazon. It's probably like $200-300. All of his original speeches, personally annotated, that say, when you say this 6 times, like an advertising message, 6 times becomes personal. You're going to buy that car. The crowd will do this. The crowd will do that. He was practicing and has learned all of the speeches. When you listen to him talk, swap out whatever person or object that he's talking about with whatever Hitler said. It's basically the same thing, but paraphrased and put into his language. This is why he is so effective. This is why Project 2025 tells you exactly what is going to happen. We're going to open up the phones here. We're going to take a little break. I'm going to give the phone numbers, take a break, come back. We're going to start taking your calls, rapid fire. Boom, 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 boom. Our number is 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Cary Harrison with you. This is Rethinking Heroes.
Listen while it's still legal.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. rethinkingheroes.com.
are in complete control. We are
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
And it is Rethinking Heroes, RethinkingHeroes.com. Cary Harrison with you. We are taking your live calls. We're reviewing the GOP convention and the future of America as they see it. Of course, based on Project 2025, conspicuously published. Do not read the version from project2025.org. That is, in fact, the Heritage Foundation, the authors of it. Read what the Guardian newspaper has written. Read what Vanity Fair has written. They synthesize it into a way that is no longer propaganda, but it lays out what the plan is. We've opened up the phones at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Let's go to Nancy in Canoga Park. You're on Rethinking Heroes. Hello, Nancy.
Oh, no, this is Dave from Venice.
Dave, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. Okay, everybody, it's Cary Harrison, not Jerry. I was corrected. Jerry Harrison is in the Talking Heads, but you still rock. I think you remember who I am now. Cary, I just wanted to say that...
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Cary, I just wanted to say that President Trump gave the Medal of Freedom to Rush Limbaugh. And this guy is a racist bigot from Florida, big mouth on the radio and all that. And anyway, I just wanted to say that. And also, it's up to the women this time to really put Trump in his place, you know, and they got to come out this November and let him know that, you know, this is just unacceptable, taking away their rights and things like that. So just wanted to say that, you know, and I wanted to speak that out on behalf of all the women in Venice. And we're free over here. And just wanted to say that. And I wanted to thank you for being on the air and for airing all these grievances against Trump.
I appreciate your call, my friend. Thank you so much. Have a great day. And you didn't really sound like Nancy, even though we did try together. That opens up a line, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-5735. We're talking about the GOP convention. We're talking about what this means for women, too. Let's remember, women have owned their bodies for decades now, and they no longer do in certain states. As Dave just pointed out, in Florida, if you are a woman, you do not own your physical body. Habeas corpus, so to speak, is not yours. That body is owned by the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. He owns your body. You may be able to deal with it medically. If you get a cold, you could take an aspirin, whatever. But as far as your fallopian tubes, your reproductive system, your ability to do what you want, when you want, in that way, no, that is the domain of men. It is shocking and appalling. It is outrageous and disgusting. And why would you remove the rights of women? Like, why? Of all the things going on in the world, let's just target women. Because women are half the population. If you reduce their range of motion, if you take away their basic rights, just like that, you have wiped out 50% of the electorate in one signature, in one Supreme Court motion. Pretty amazing if that's your goal. And with that, then follows what's number two, always? The gays. Invisible, tiny percentage, busy doing their thing. Make them the worst villain in the world. Oh, transgenders. Make them the worst villains in the world. How many transgenders do most people deal with on a daily basis? It might be minimal. A lot of people now have children that are fluid and non-binary. It's not controversial at home at the dinner table, but it is controversial for a politician. Do they actually believe that? No. How do we know this? Mel White, who wrote all the speeches for Jerry Falwell, came out as gay years later, wrote a book, a mea culpa, trying for us, hoping that we would forgive him for assisting in the lack of help in the 1980s, which caused thousands of AIDS deaths because he was perpetuating all of the myths and cruelly making money for himself at the expense of his fellows. All that to say, Jerry Falwell notoriously had giant dinner parties filled with what? Gay men. Why? Entertaining. Conversationalists. Not a problem. Not with Jerry Falwell and God looking at the dinner table. I wonder if Franklin Graham, how many gay friends he hangs out with. See, this is the thing you never get to see. You never get to see the webcam of the politician. He gets to see you. The government gets to listen in on your phone calls, whether it's through the NSA, whether it's every street corner, street lamp, intersection with a camera on there. You get to be observed, your phone calls, your iPhone, your droid, every movement you make. It's true. Orwell predicted a future that hadn't come true yet when he wrote the book in 1948 called 1984. George Orwell, who was, by the way, gay and was having an affair with someone in MI4. This is how he learned what the British organization was doing, the Secret Service. I know, it's shocking, but it's just part of life and has always been there since the beginning of time. Yet the politicians make it sound like a real problem. And if you're a member of the GOP at this moment, you have a very simplified bit of messaging. You need a gun, you need a can of beer, and you need a dose of Jesus. And by the way, Jesus, who said everything in the world that was important, if you needed to know it, Jesus spoke about it. Fact. It's in the New Testament. If it was important, he mentioned it. How many times did he mention homosexuality or gays? Class, hands up. How many times? Dead air. Crickets. Correct. 0 times. But he sure mentioned everything else a whole lot. Why would he mention it 0 times if it was so thunderously important? And if Donald Trump is painting himself as the next Jesus Christ, and by the way, he's selling shoes now, assassination shoes, making money off of that. I mean, I know you see a problem in that. Unfortunately, his fans wearing the maxi pads on their ears in some kind of weird support, they are somehow blind to this. And I think that's the beauty of propaganda. If there is beauty in propaganda, that is it. When it is practiced perfectly, it works like a poison, deadly charm. Let's open up the phones. Go to Nancy in Canoga Park at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Nancy, you're on Rethinking Heroes. Nancy. Maybe not. How about Peter in Southeast Texas?
Good morning. Your sound is a little bit dim. Can you hear me?
I hear you great. Don't worry about me. You are the star of the show.
No, I can hear you. The report. If there is a crime scene, and there was a crime scene in whatever that was, the sheriff, the local sheriff, has to treat it as such. So he goes to the spot and says, "This is now, ladies and gentlemen, this is now a crime scene. You are requested to stay in here. Sorry about that. We'll deal with things as fast as we can, and start collecting information. Do you have anything to say? No, go home. Do you have a cell phone? Did you take pictures? Do you notice something? Did you hear anything? Yes, I did. Here's your ticket. Please show up tomorrow and at the office at the sheriff's station, and we'll take notes as soon as possible." Because
that would be the normal protocol. Yeah, I'm following you on that.
Collection from the floor, and I hear somebody talking over me. I don't know if
that's me. That's me. I'm cutting to the finish line here, where you can synthesize your thoughts. And what you're saying is that in any, especially if you're trying to assassinate a former president, there would be a gathering of every live human in there. There would be interrogations, photograph, fingerprinting, biometrics, all of it. Everyone would be measured. Everyone would be stamped and printed. We would know exactly who everyone was just because he was a former president, even if it were a simple murder. The neighbors get questioned. Everyone gets questioned. And we seem to have a conspicuous absence of that. And so that's why there's more questions to be asked. Stunts, we do it in radio. Not so much nowadays because the radio that many of us grew up with is long gone. But I can tell you back in my days of rock and roll radio, we used to go through the garbage cans of competing radio stations and read their letters on the air, internal letters to each other, because it screwed them up. It screwed up their sales force. It ruined everything. And it was wildly entertaining. And you got high ratings for it. These were hoaxes that you would do because they work and they motivate large audiences. If you could pull something like this off and nobody can actually figure it out and follow it, it's very believable. It is believable that he was shot because he was. There's just a lot of open areas, because I could tell you, if Biden were shot at and part of his ear were snipped off, they would have had him on the floor. They would have dragged him out. They never in a million years would have let him stand up and start pumping his fist in front of the flag. Number two, is Donald Trump that much of a stud that he can pull himself out of the hands of multiple really built and ripped Secret Service guys, plow himself up in the air like that, and there they are, powerless weaklings compared to this giant hulk of a raging musculature? I mean, seriously. It's a giant flesh pudding. Think about Donald Trump in his golf pants, sitting on the ground. How long, pull out a stopwatch, would it take him to actually get up on his own? Yeah, you'd need some help, wouldn't you? Oh, you'd need some help, wouldn't you? All right, let's go next to, I'm just scrolling because there's a ton of calls here. Let's go to Reagan in Culver City. You're on Rethinking Heroes.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for taking my call. Well, my big question is how do we get the message to the people who are listening to his message? Because you and I agree. We all agree who are listening. But, like, there are people that are listening to the propaganda and the bullshit. Excuse me, I'm so not supposed to say that. But, like, how do we get it out there to the people who need to know these answers so that they can recognize that they're essentially voting for the Antichrist?
You know, it's a great question, and it's one we ask each other all the time. I have a simple answer. It's not the solution. It's just a solution. You and I have, unfortunately, an extra responsibility of eternal vigilance, much as the founding fathers cautioned us not to sit on our rear end, let it get really flabby, and watch Netflix all day and just blow it off. Unfortunately, we are now at that time where you and I have to, in coffee shops, find a decent way to, spark a conversation, let people, analyze, does the emperor have no clothes? What does it mean? What's happening? And just invite them to have critical thinking about what's going on. Ask some questions of themselves, because on one side of the equation are people who believe in myths. They believe in Superman, Batman, phoenixes rising from the ashes, whatever they're told. On the other side, you have people who are divided. So let's say, generally speaking, in the Democratic Party, you're going to have people that are very focused on climate change, and that's their thing. And you're going to have people focused on civil rights, and that's their thing. So you don't really have unity in a world where people actually understand things and they find them valuable and important and they need to get fixed. And there are so many of them that you don't really have unity in a party. Whereas in the Republican Party at the moment, you have one thing that's simple. And I'm going to give you a single example that I think will make sense. And then we're going to go to you, Bobby. We're going to go to, we've just got so many. We'll go to you, Bobby, next. And then we're going to take a break after that. In World War II, and we look at propaganda through the guy who invented it, Edward L. Bernays, an American, wrote a book called Propaganda, ended up taking it to Germany and introducing that book to none other than Dr. Joseph Goebbels, who then put it on steroids and brought it to new use. So really, it was an invention for advertising purposes, later then taken by the Third Reich and used in the worst possible ways. And of course, it has now been absolutely perfected. How did the Nazis, the early Nazis, get their message out to everyone? And this is going to answer our question, Reagan. How did they do it? Well, this is right after the Depression. Germany in the Weimar Republic is in ruins, right? It's just people are starving to death housewives are literally hooking. Men are going out into trees, pulling slugs off of wet branches to get protein. It's that bad. People cannot afford radios. A radio made out of, polished teak wood. It's got vacuum tubes on the inside. It's an expensive appliance, isn't it? Yeah, it sure is. Who could afford one? No one. So the NSDAP, the brown shirts, the early Nazis, gave out free radios to all the Germans. Here, free radio. Wow, that's cool. And what do you think is on that radio? Good guess. The Fuhrer. All the time. To Rachel Maddow's credit, and I was on a cruise with her. We called it the Progressive Voices Cruise. And this was back when I was on Air America. So we're looking at 8-9 years ago. We had her. We had Bobby Kennedy before he went nuts. We had a lot of people on there. And she's now come up with a podcast that reviews much of the history that you and I have been talking about for years. She is with a big company, but she's found a way to be able to get this information out and review some of this history, how the Nazis were looking to take over U.S. radio stations. All that to say, everyone in Germany got a free radio with the Fuhrer, mixed up with some classical music and a little bit of whatever the approved music was. So you got the Fuhrer and then some happy music. And over again, 24 hours a day, you're listening to the Fuhrer and you're listening to propaganda. And what are you going to think as a population? And that's what Donald Trump does. He's got television. All he has to do is pull one glute to the side and release a great gaseous barbarism, and it's covered endlessly and repeat in clips over and over again forever on CNN, on Fox, on Newsmax, et al. And it becomes a fact, or it becomes important. Why is it important? Because if it's on TV a bunch of times, it must be important. And that's how propaganda works. So what do you and I do? We have to start talking to each other. We have to go to places where we don't hang around with each other. I know we like to be with each other because it's kind of comfortable, but we have to kind of go out of our area and we have to do basic canvassing, but find ways to be able to talk and connect with others and wake them a little up. Project 2025 is not sexy to anybody. Nobody, even on the right. They don't like this idea of, wait a minute, you're going to build concentration camps for like enemies of the state? What is that exactly? Well, we don't know. Project 2025. If you look at porn, you will be arrested. Now, I'm not saying you look at porn tomorrow. I'm saying it says if you ever looked at porn, and I'm whispering to you in your ear on the radio side of things, only you know how much porn you've ever looked at, and all of it is archived at the NSA. And all of it will be, according to Project 2025, completely under the White House, because they will be removing all the different arms of government and putting everything under Donald Trump. So they can go back in time, find out what you did, and put you in that camp. For your safety now, just like a Warsaw Ghetto, for your safety. And in some perverse way, you might be safer there than in the middle of a MAGA beer party. You get where I'm going. So we have to do stuff about it. We're going to take a quick pause. Then we're going to go to Bobby. Then we're going to go to Jesse in Fontana. We're going to go to everyone else at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Cary Harrison with you. We are streaming on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on everything with a chip and a signal. I am coming to you live from Switzerland right now. I am up in the Alps at a private school called Institute Montana, which is my alma mater. I've been invited here to teach a course in media literacy and critical thinking to 10-year-olds, and they love it, and they are brilliant. And so it's such an honor. This is where John Kerry went, a bunch of other scallywags like me, like him, like others. So I'm in the most awesome spot, and I get to come to you using our wonderful technology from neutral Switzerland in the Alps and taking your calls locally. What's not to love? Stand by, more to come.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
actually, comma, if you could replay something, period, I'm in Switzerland. Week, which will be this week's.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
Rethinking Heroes. Cary Harrison with you, your new best friend. That's C-A-R-Y. If you want to see us live streaming on YouTube, C-A-R-Y, Harrison, and YouTube, just Google it. It'll come up. We're also on the KPFK Facebook page and everywhere else. Anything with a chip and a signal, coming to you live from neutral Switzerland and taking your calls. The number, of course, we have an open line, one open line at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Let's go to Bobby in LA. You're on Rethinking Heroes.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing great, my friend.
I was watching you on the Facebook at the same time. You're in Switzerland?
I am in Switzerland, yes.
Very good. I've been to Zermatt, Moscona, and Flims.
Oh, only the nice places. Of course, Switzerland is basically like Disney World. It's a giant resort from one end to the other.
Uh-huh. I used to play for Solomon Burke.
Oh, really?
And so I was on tour there. But no, I didn't go to Switzerland with Solomon. I went with a lady named Sydney Ellis.
Well,
I went over there and played all over Switzerland and Germany and wherever. But hello?
Yeah, I am here. Let's jump into the topic, if you don't mind, though I do appreciate the personal note. Your reflections on the GOP convention, Project 2025, and things to come.
Okay, well, what I wanted to say first was I believe that Biden should step down, forget the ego. We need someone who can talk like Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, somebody that can talk, not stutter, not lose their train of thought, not call people the wrong name. This is not looking good. We need someone who's forceful that can stand up to Trump and combat everything he's saying. He's so suave and everything. This Project 25 is a disaster. We should be printing down the top 10 or 20 things that's in that book and putting it out to people so they know what's going on. I don't think half the country even knows, well, you might lose your Medicare. Your veterans benefits might be cut. This might be cut. That might be cut. The country needs to get back on a sound footing for its democracy. And the other thing is, I believe the Democrats need to do more between now and November to firm up voting for African Americans, American Indians, and Hispanics, and put in some more vote by mail boxes around. But we have to do something to get a strong voice in there.
I am so there with you. I am 100% on board with that. As much as we would love to see Joe Biden reverse his age by about 20 years, unfortunately, we're dealing with decrepitude and geezerdom. And it's unavoidable. And it's nobody's fault. I mean, geez, you're 80. Like, go fishing. And it is ego and pride. This is not a swim meet with a 12-year-old. Come on, Timmy, get back up, get back in the water. You'll be fine. This is everything matters. So it really isn't about him saving face. We just need to help invent an elegant way where he can step aside as an elder statesman, acknowledge all the good things that he's done, let him leave as a hero and pass the baton likely to Kamala Harris, who, she's tough, let's face it. And we need Democrats that are not only alive, but filled with fire and passion, and a woman of color, a glass ceiling that she can smash through. Now we have a woman and a woman of color, and likely Gavin Newsom, who runs the fifth, sixth largest economy on earth. Two people who are not afraid. They are not bashful. They both have a swinging set of ovaries and a swinging set of testes. It's exciting. It's a Democratic Party we've been waiting 20 years for. That would be a really good alternative. And I am so glad you brought that up, my friend. I think we have time to jump quickly to, I don't know who. It's hard for me to see on all this screen. What a mess. Thank you so much for your call. That opens up a line at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-5735. We have a live studio audience right now. We have a Ukrainian and a Russian. Now, this is not grown-ups, because when anyone says live studio audience, you think of adults. I'm in a school. I'm in a summer camp at a private school in Switzerland, which is filled with kids from all over the world. And right now, sitting in front of me is a 14-year-old Ukrainian and a 14-year-old Russian sitting next to each other, and they are best friends. And earlier today, in part of my work here, which is to build bridges, they talked to each other or interviewed each other as I'm teaching them media literacy and critical thinking. They discovered they both don't like war, they both don't want war, and they're both not responsible for the decisions that are being made, but under which they unfortunately personally suffer. But they're able to have friendships nonetheless. And it was extraordinary. And I'm going to play that in the next couple of weeks, because you need to hear how kids think, because kids don't filter it. As adults, we have learned to self-censor, to self-edit, because we know we get in trouble, just like we have FCC overlooking this radio station. There's things I simply cannot say. I can say it on a live stream or after the show, but I can't say it on the radio because the FCC will get terribly upset and terrible things will happen to me and to the station. Because we're adults, we know not to say stuff first. Kids say what they see, what they smell, what they think. And so we get a really unvarnished kind of truth, which is beautiful. Let's go next to Jesse in Fontana. You're on Rethinking Heroes. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity, and I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. And thank you for giving to our community by being there with those kids and everything you do, sir.
My pleasure, my friend. I want to hear your brain. Let it loose, drain it, squeeze it like a sponge.
I'm so sorry. I'm a rambler. We might be here all night, and I've probably got a few minutes, but I'll shorten it up as best I can. I don't know what you were referencing, but there was so much that it's very interesting and also very enlightening. It's nice to hear a well-spoken and very illustrated way to think with words, and I'm very happy you convey this not only to the world, but to these children. And I think kids are an incredibly important part of our species. We wouldn't be here without them, even with all the projects we have.
Well, and of course, they're taking over. So you and I just kind of disappear into history. They take over. Are we going to help them take over and be able to make good decisions, be able to practice self-care, be able to think about community? This is what you're saying. And you're so right. It's everything.
It's absolutely, sir. It's the most important step is working with these kids. If we cannot be able to guide them, even if, let's say, we have no children, like you're just a single parent, but you decide to volunteer in the community as a teacher, as an educator, someone who's a role model and guides, if it's in the Boy Scouts or even in your platform, sir, as an educator who goes different places. It's incredibly important what we do in our communities with our districts and everything. And it's the school boards and how they run them. It's crucial for these children to have the best chance just to enjoy their lives in America.
Yeah. And for them to be able to fashion a country that we all want to live in. And even though many of them are not of age to vote, they can influence their parents. So I'm going to tell you a little secret, okay, Jesse? But you can't tell anyone. You have to promise. It's just between you and me. So,
okay, up in the audience. I got it, sir.
I know that. And thank you for calling me sir. It's the first person that's called me sir all day. I love it. So here's the secret. So these kids come from families of influence, let's say, because it's a Swiss school, and so it's expensive. And so I know that if I teach them critical thinking and they can actually evaluate and make good choices and start to be self-aware and think about you and me and people that are different and they're all mixed together, they're going to go back and they're going to seed the nest. And their parents may be Project 2025 lovers. Their parents may be big money grubbing whatevers. But these kids will come back and slowly wear down those sharp edges. And we know it's true. So there's afterglow in all the efforts we make to help raise our plants, to water them and give them nutrition. And this is also part of what you and I do. You call in, you are seeding millions of ears, people who may not call in, but they're hearing how you think. And that's the beauty of sharing this space and this communication. So I really appreciate your call, my friend.
Plant the seed, nurture the plant, and, enjoy the fruits of your labor, right there.
That's it, my friend. I do appreciate it. We're going to squeeze in one more quick call. We're going to go to Mike in Leona, California. Mike, you're on Rethinking Heroes.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment. I don't think that Trump is the actual Antichrist. He's probably has a seed for the Antichrist, and the reason that he got spared was the devil. The devil saved trimmed his ear, and kind of warned him. God warned him to listen instead of being a fool. That's the way I see it.
I wish I could comment on that, but this is way above my pay grade. This is so ethereal. Are you serious?
Yeah. The actual Antichrist is going to go in and declare himself God in the temple, the third temple, and the third temple has not been built yet. But he's making it possible for the third temple to be built, and he's an antecedent for the devil, for the Antichrist.
Okay. Well, it's very likely.
I see it.
I can't dispute it because, like I said, it's above my pay grade, but I do appreciate your call, my friend. Yes, I'm glad to hear the laugh. Good. I feel so much better and safer now suddenly. Cary Harrison with you. This is Rethinking Heroes. We're down to the last minute or so. I really want to thank all you guys. And I want to thank Renee Yawarski, who is our technical director, who is in the Northeast somewhere. And she's cutting the video, real-time directing, multicam. I'm coming to you live from Switzerland. This is a giant operation, and we do this for you because this matters, and everything matters. And the fact that you show up and that you listen and that you call in, that you contribute, it moves me. Listen to me. Now, it does. It moves me. It's like everything that I could have ever wanted in life. It's actually happening here. And together we can make this better. It's hard to have hope when you see what's happening, but when you know what's happening, you can navigate the seemingly impossible shoals of the future. And that is the point of this kind of education. It's for free and it's fun. And I appreciate it. Cary Harrison with you. This is Rethinking Heroes, rethinkingheroes.com. And I look forward to seeing everybody and hearing everybody next week.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison, rethinkingheroes.com.